What's happening, everybody? Today's video is going to be an addition to my Austin Weiss Home Advisors interview series. I'm going to be interviewing one of my preferred home insurance brokers, Christian Gibbs with Goosehead Insurance right here in the Chicagoland area. My goal is to work with people who are crushing it in their industry and changing the way things are done for the better while chasing fulfillment and having fun. So in today's video, we're going to be covering everything you need to know about homeowners insurance so that you're covered in case of the unexpected. So let's get after it. What's happening, everybody? Today I'm interviewing Christian Gibbs. He is an insurance rep at Goosehead Insurance locally right here in the Chicagoland area. We're going to be covering everything you need to know about homeowners insurance. I'm going to dive deep and really get this guy to answer some nitty-gritty questions. So let's get after it. Christian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for asking.
Good.
Happy to be here. Happy to talk about the insurance process with everybody, go through a couple of these questions, and hopefully, give everybody a little bit better of an understanding around homeowners insurance.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. By the way, Christian is my home insurance guy and my car insurance guy. So if you're going to buy, sell, or invest in real estate anywhere in the Chicagoland area, you're probably going to be talking to Christian if you don't already have someone for insurance. All right, well, let's just jump right into it. So tell us more about Goosehead Insurance, how it's different or how it's beneficial compared to contacting an insurance company directly.
Yeah, so Goosehead is the largest independent brokerage in the United States.
Wow.
So the difference between Goosehead and what we would call your captive agency, like your State Farm, your Allstate directly, we're able to shop the market. So depending on which market we're in, which state, we've got about 40 to 50 different carriers. So when you contact me or any of my coworkers, we're able to kind of shop the entire market, give you the best price as well as the best coverage.
Awesome. Well, that sums it up pretty good.
Yeah.
Good for you. All right. Does someone actually need homeowners insurance?
Yeah, so for a home buyer, you're going to need insurance to close on the home. So regardless of where the home may be, regardless of the purchase price or anything like that, you're going to need that in order to close on the home.
Yeah, and I know when I chat with my mortgage lenders, it's a required thing before they ever extend loan dollars to someone because they want to make sure that the home they're extending their money to is insured, and that's actually an actual document they need to sign at the closing table.
Yeah. So typically, with a lot of the lenders that I work with, they will kind of loop in me as the insurance agent about 3 to 4 weeks before the closing, just so that we can secure the insurance portion, so that there's a pretty smooth, clear close. So as I said, it's a requirement, and for us, and me being the independent insurance agent, it just is super beneficial for the client to kind of reach out to someone like me, just because, again, we're able to shop the entire market. So right. I can look at, we do, I sell Allstate, I sell Travelers, Nationwide, and a couple of the other bigger companies that you're used to, familiar with hearing. But we're also able to sell like a Cincinnati or some of the smaller carriers that you're not typically going to hear. They don't do a ton of marketing, not a lot of commercials. They only like specific risk and specific areas. So it's awesome that we're able to sell those as well.
Now, I know when I closed on my house in late 2020, I had Hippo, and then you helped me get Travelers this past year for 2023. Yeah. So that's just the difference between, maybe a company that is smaller versus something that's much, much larger. Yeah. So for Hippo, Openly is another one that's pretty common here in Illinois. A lot of times when, I speak to clients and I'm like, hey, I have this Hippo policy for you. They're like, what the heck is That was
Hippo?
My reaction initially. And then, they turned out great. And
so, it's again, they're great companies. We only work with A-rated carriers, so they're all going to be high quality, no issues with paying out claims or anything like that. But as I said, typically why you don't hear of them is just because they don't do a ton of marketing and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the key thing. They're not going to be advertising at the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That. All right, I got you. All right, so what does homeowners insurance actually do for the homeowner in a nutshell?
Yeah, so it really just secures your home, your belongings. Obviously, buying a home is going to be typically the largest asset that people have. So you're going to want to insure that properly, make sure all of your belongings and things are taken care of. So having a insurance policy for the home that covers everything that you have is going to be key.
Awesome. Well, that's exactly why I wanted you to get on an interview with me, because if someone's saving for years for a down payment on a house, and then they finally are able to afford one, beat out all the competition for their favorite house, they're going to want to make sure that if for some reason something goes wrong, that they have a backup plan. And that's exactly what homeowners insurance is.
Right.
All right, moving on to the next question. How is coverage amount determined, and are personal belongings typically covered in policies?
Yeah, so for the coverage amount, that's pretty specific to each individual client, each individual home. So typically when someone's calling me, reaching out to shop homeowners insurance, we will run the home through each carrier, what they call the replacement cost estimator. And that's going to be the cost to rebuild the home from the foundation up with like, kind, and quality materials that they use to build the original home. So this doesn't tie to the purchase price, doesn't tie to the loan amount or the current market value of the home. Again, this is just going to be the rebuild costs of the home. And then for personal belongings, typically that's going to fall under your personal property coverage. Typically you'll see coverage C, a little bit of insurance knowledge for you. That'll be your coverage C on your policy. And that's going to be personal property. Typically it's standard at 50% of the home building costs.
Wow, okay. Yeah, I always tell people there's a realtor value of the home, there's the appraisal value of the home, and then there's the insurance estimate of repair costs. So you're going to get valuations thrown at you all over the place when you're trying to figure out what the value of your house is.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Well, that was a great explanation. And does that policy that you just spoke about cover actual cash value or replacement cost value?
So that is actually a really good question. So typically that's more so on your insurance agent. So I could give, an actual cash value on the home. But typically for me and my clients, I like to do replacement costs. I want to make sure that, whatever is there, whatever it's covered for, you guys are going to get that full amount, and that no depreciation comes into that. Because you got to think, if, you got a home and let's say it depreciates at about $2,000 to $3,000 per year, over a span of 15, 20 years, and you guys, file a claim at that 20-year mark, $3,000 a year times 20 years, you're not going to get as much as you would if you just do the replacement costs of the home.
Okay. Now, I operate my business for the most part out of my home. And I know a lot of people watching my videos are small business owners, and they might be working out of their home as well. Does someone that's owning and operating a business out of their home, do they need additional coverage?
Yeah, so that's going to be what we call like an endorsement on your homeowner's policy. So some of the carriers aren't going to want to take on that sort of risk, just depending on what sort of business you're operating out of your home. If you've got multiple employees that are coming in and out, or specific types of machinery or equipment and things of that nature. So that's just going to be specific to each carrier. But again, that's one of the benefits of shopping with a independent broker, because we're able to shop the market, take a look at all the specific carriers, which ones don't want certain risk, which ones do, and just kind of go and pinpoint your policy based off of those findings.
Great input. I never knew that. Okay. All right, so moving on, and maybe you've already touched on this a little bit, but what is typically covered in a policy, and then what are a couple of common claims that you see on your end that happen in the Chicagoland area?
Yeah, so on your standard homeowners policy, you're going to see 6 coverages, A through E. So your coverage A, that's going to be, as we mentioned, the replacement cost of the home. Your coverage B, that's going to be other structures, so that's going to be anything that's permanently detached, any sort of detached garage or shed. Your mailbox, your driveway are all going to fall under that category. Your coverage C, that's going to be your personal property. As we mentioned, that's going to be the best way we like to explain that. If you were to chop the roof off your home, turn it on its side, or flip it upside down and shake it, anything that falls out, that's going to be covered under your personal property category. Your coverage D, that's going to be your loss of use. This is for if your home is in some sort of total loss and you had to live or rent somewhere else, there's typically a pool of money on your policy that goes towards that. This can typically be used for up to 12 to 24 months, so it's awesome that that's included. And then your E and F, that's going to be your liability. This is in place for whatever reason, if you get sued, you're going to want to, have some sort of coverage to protect yourself and your family members. And then F, that's going to be your medical payments. So that's for any sort of injuries that are incurred on your property. So say, you got a couple friends over, someone falls down the stairs, breaks their arm. You're like, hey, here's $5,000 towards your medical expenses that could be used for, like the ambulance or even just the hospital bill if it's under that $5,000.
Okay, well, hopefully we don't invite too many friends over that are going to be falling down the stairs.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, totally. All right. Does anyone ever qualify for discounts on their policy? And then what's the easiest way to reduce the monthly premiums or increase the monthly premiums?
Yeah, so for discounts, that's going to be, again, specific to each individual client. The biggest discount that you're going to see for your homeowners is going to be to bundle your homeowners insurance with the auto insurance. Another big thing to kind of get that premium down is the roof age. So I know this is important for someone in your position. Roof age is going to be huge for getting that premium down. So typically when you get around 15 years for the roof, a lot of the insurance companies don't want that sort of risk. So it's going to be pretty tough to find a good policy. So the newer the roof, the better the premium's going to be for you guys.
Okay.
And then other discounts for the homeowners are typically, if you pay in full, get a huge discount. Sure. Obviously, that goes through the escrow for most folks, so they typically do qualify for that discount. But yeah, that's typically the bigger ones that you're going to see. There are a couple other smaller ones that you will qualify for. Sometimes like an umbrella policy will qualify you for that multi-policy discount, or if you've got like a rental property or something like that, if you get them all with one carrier, you're typically going to see a bigger discount on both the policies.
No, I'm glad you just brought up rental properties, and I want to make sure everyone is listening to this. Homeowners insurance is not tax deductible for your personal residence, but for your rental properties, income properties. Talk to your CPA because you can write off some or most of it, and definitely make sure you have a conversation with your CPA about that. Going off of what you said about roofs, because that's one of the main three big things I talk to people about when they're shopping for a house. I want to see the roof's in good shape, the windows, and the systems. Right. That includes the AC furnace, and then as well as the appliances, any other electronics in the house. So as from an insurance perspective, you don't want to see a double layer roof, correct?
No.
Yeah, and typically roofers won't even do that nowadays. But if the homeowner's stingy, then they'll put another layer on top of the existing layer, and that can kind of complicate things on the insurance end, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's not something that we like to see on our end. Typically, I know like with Progressive, they don't, in most counties, they don't even want to see roofs that are over 6 years old.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now, if a kid wants a trampoline and they have friends over, would someone be covered in the event of an injury?
So that's actually funny that you asked that. So one of the common questions that I ask every single client is, do you have a pool and do you have a trampoline? A lot of the carriers won't take on that sort of risk. Some of them will, some of them won't. So some will allow you to have a pool, some of them will allow you to have a trampoline, others won't. So again, shopping the market, being able to find a carrier that will is going to be huge. And then where that trampoline kind of comes into place, that kind of falls under that liability coverage. So anytime anybody is injured on your property, they have the ability to sue you. So if your friend, if you have a kid and they have friends over and they're injured, their friend's parents can sue you, but hopefully they don't, and that's kind of where that's kind of where that medical payments coverage comes into place. Because say, for instance, they fall off the trampoline, they break their arm, and you're like, hey, here's $5,000. I'm so sorry, this happened. Please don't sue us. The kids were just playing in the yard, like they normally do. And obviously, if the other kids' parents are understanding, they're going to go ahead and take the $5,000 and put it towards their medical expenses.
Sure. Yeah, I get people that move here from out of state all the time, specifically southern states or California or whatever it is, and they're used to having pools. So when they come here, they put on there. It's not a necessity, but it would be nice to have. And I say, well, in Chicagoland, we typically have like a neighborhood pool or a community pool, and then you don't have to pay for the insurance. And then they go, oh, that's a good point.
Yeah,
And everything. And
yeah.
they realize that the neighborhood pool is actually pretty nice.
No,
There's some nice pools
they're,
around here.
They're super nice.
Yeah. And you don't have to take care of it either.
No, that's the
you're
best part about
You're
it.
probably only going to get 90 to 100 days
Yeah,
of usefulness out of a pool in your backyard.
Right.
Any given season. Okay. Awesome. All right. So we live in Chicagoland, and we don't have hurricanes, droughts, the forest fires you see on TV from out west. What natural disasters are typically covered here? And then does anything, if it's not covered in the typical policy, what would be additional on a policy? Yeah,
so I'm glad you asked that. It kind of piggybacks to the question I didn't answer, the common claims here in the Chicagoland area. So what you're going to see typically in the Midwest is, and on your standard homeowners policy, is flood is never going to be covered. That's going to be that's going to be a separate policy. In most cases, here in the Midwest, you're not going to be in a flood zone. But if for whatever reason, you look at the neighborhood and kind of the historic, things of the neighborhood, and there was a flood there historically, obviously you're going to want to have to, get yourself a flood policy just to cover. And flood is going to be any, outside water coming into the home. So the entire neighborhood has to essentially flood for that to be covered in the home or in the policy.
Okay.
So what you're typically going to see is we all have a friend who, their basement flooded when they were flooded when we were growing up, and they're like, hey, awesome, my basement flooded.
Yeah.
That's going to be water backup. So water backup is going to be one of the most common claims here in the Chicagoland area. That's going to be, if you get a heavy storm and a drain or something backs up, water comes through the sink, and then that comes into the home and, that floods the home.
Yeah.
That's going to be water backup. So that's going to be one of the most common things. As far as natural disasters go, you typically don't have too much to worry about here in Illinois. That's going to kind of be falling under the endorsements. You can throw some of those things on your policy, but in most cases, you're not at a huge risk for, some of those natural disasters coming through the Chicagoland area.
Okay. Wow, that was quite the explanation. Good. Good for knowing all of that. Now, when I go into homes with people, I'm always pointing out certain items in the basement, especially because I know a lot of people come to Illinois and they're not used to having basements.
Right.
And I look at the sump pump and I go, that one has a battery backup, and that's important to have because if the power does go out, you want to make sure that sump pump's continuing to pump water away from the foundation and that it doesn't overflow into the basement. So that goes along with what you said.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something I try to point out when we're looking at homes.
Yeah,
sure.
that's huge. You're definitely gonna. So a lot of times when someone's selling, they have to disclose if there are any claims on the home. But say for instance you've got a person who owned the home for 2 years. They don't necessarily know about the previous things.
Sure.
So in most cases you can reach out to your insurance agent. I'm able to run a property history report on the home, so I can see any claims, how much was paid out, and the specific dates of those, all the way back from about 7 years. So,
oh wow! I never even knew that. Okay, well that's what we're going to be doing from now on when we're shopping for homes. If anybody is ever worried about something going on in the basement, we're going to reach out to Christian and have a conversation. Going along with the whole flooding thing, I feel like growing up here in the Chicagoland area, there wasn't a whole ton of flooding, and now that I'm in real estate, there still isn't, but there are pockets around Chicagoland that are designated flood zones. So before we ever go put a contract on a house, I'm going to run information on the other side, in the background, and make sure that you're not buying a house in a flood zone. And if you are, you're comfortable with doing that, and you know what the insurance costs are before you ever get yourself involved any further from that. So, all right, well, let's move on. We have only a couple more questions to go, and then we're going to get to our fire round. Sweet. So I don't mean to make you sweat at all, but does the coverage of your insurance increase when someone makes updates to a house?
Yeah, so typically, for someone in my position, say, you bought a policy from me 5 years ago. Oh, I just, sold you a homeowners policy earlier this year. So, say 3-4 years from now, the price goes up on the homeowners insurance. You reach out to me like, hey, Christian, this increased by, $300. Can we take a look at seeing if there's something better out there? Typically, the first question I'm going to ask you is, have you made any updates on the home since we wrote that initial policy? So any updates on the home, flooring, cabinets, anything like that, anything at all, if you guys, remodeled the inside of the home, that's all going to fall into that replacement cost of the home. So typically what you're going to want to do is if you make any upgrades to your home, you're going to want to reach out to your insurance agent just because that'll have a direct tie to that replacement cost. So say for instance, you're covered at $400,000, you guys totally gut the home, redo the whole thing, and your insurance policy only covers that $400,000. Say for whatever instance, I run the replacement cost estimator 3-4 years down the line, and it says $650,000. You were only going to get paid out for $400,000. So that extra additional $250,000, you wouldn't have received that at all.
Wow.
Solely because you just didn't reach out to the insurance agent, let them know, because all that has to kind of be updated as you upgrade the home.
Okay, so moral of the story: have Christian on your speed dial. And when you update your home and you put all those fancy updates in your house or finish the basement, call him and make sure your policy is up to date.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you ready for the fire round?
Here we go. Let's do it.
All right. So how many policies do you plan to actually write this year?
Yeah, I would love to write about 400 to 500 policies
Wow,
this year.
you're going to help 400 to 500 families.
Yeah,
amazing.
awesome.
Amazing. Okay. That's a lot, man.
Yeah.
You're going to be busy.
Yeah, I am. That's the goal.
That's the goal. All right. What's your favorite thing to do in Chicagoland outside of work?
Yeah, so, I grew up here my entire life, so I love visiting the city, love going out to, trying new restaurants, attending sporting events, concerts, what most people typically love to do on the weekends. That's, what I like to do as well.
Yeah, well, Chicago's a great city to do that because
Yeah.
it's actually, I've talked about it in several of my videos, Chicago's actually ranked the #1 city in the world for food and
Oh,
drinks.
wow. I didn't even know that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
and
awesome.
it's actually the #1 brewery city in the country.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah,
you're in the right.
Yeah,
you're
I'm
in the right place.
spot. I need to get out a little bit more than I see.
Yep. All right. So now that you're a football guy, you played in high school and college and everything. Do you think the Bears will actually move to Arlington Heights?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I did a couple tryouts for the Bears. And,
really?
Yeah, so
Good for you.
I know where the practice facility is and everything like that, and just that commute for the players going to practice. That is in Arlington. It's right, or outside of Arlington. So, say for whatever instance you live downtown Chicago as a player, you got to come all the way. That's not an easy commute. So, I definitely see the city of Chicago doing one final push to try to keep the Bears in Chicago. But if for whatever reason they do move to Arlington, I think that they put a pretty solid plan together. And just the location of it, I think would be pretty sweet. But obviously, historically, it's the Chicago Bears, downtown Chicago.
I know.
We love that.
I know. All right. Well, hey, if they end up moving to Arlington Heights and you're interested in buying an investment property, that might be a good idea for down the road. Because there'll be plenty of events at that stadium. All right, well, anything else that people should know about you, Goosehead, or Homeowners Insurance that we might have missed?
Honestly, man, I think we hit on a lot.
Yeah, we did.
Most people, like I said before, we started this. Most clients typically don't know a lot of these things. So was super happy to be able to just spread some knowledge. If anybody needs help, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put Christian's information down in the description box below. If you guys ever have any questions about homeowners insurance, he's your guy. If you have plans on making a move, whether it's to buy, sell, or invest in real estate anywhere in the Chicagoland area, I'd love to connect with you and help you in any way possible. But until next time, we'll catch you guys later.